My name is Gianfranco Pocobene, and we have just completed a project in our studio to conserve and restore this figure of Christ and 4 prayer boards from the chapel here in Old North Church. So we picked these paintings up back in October, about a couple of months ago, and brought them to our studio up in Lawrence for treatment. The biggest problem that these paintings had was that they had surface grime and old varnishes on them that discolored their appearance. They had yellowed and kind of gone milky, and you really couldn't read the text very well in many areas. And also the surrounding frame elements, the gold relief areas, had been restored at some point in the past with what we call a radiator paint. It's basically like a copper and zinc and other materials in there that mimic gold, probably looked kind of like gold originally, but the copper element typically will deteriorate and oxidize, and it goes this kind of dull gray, green kind of color, so it had a very dead look to them.
These are not the first altar paintings that the church had. They had another set which is now at a church in Quincy, and we believe that these altar paintings are a copy of those. The painting of Jesus at the Last Supper and the 10 Commandments was donated to the church by a church member, Shubile Bell, who was a warden here in the early 1800s. Shubile Bell also donated the bust of George Washington that's here in the church, and he also helped start the Sunday school here. This painting is entitled Christ at the Last Supper, and it was painted by artist John Rideau Penniman in 1812. John Rideau Penniman was a portraitist and decorative artist based here in Boston. He actually did his apprenticeship in Roxbury, but his skill really improved after he developed a friendship with an even more famous portraitist, Gilbert Stuart, who of course we know his work, his portrait of George Washington, which is now on the dollar bill. And Penniman really became a pretty well-known and well-regarded artist here in Boston until his career really started to decline in the 1820s due to alcoholism and financial instability, and he passed away in 1841 in Baltimore.
The first thing we did in terms of treatment is that we actually removed the varnish and coatings and grime that was on all of them. And it appears that especially the prayer boards had different histories of restoration on them. So the way we went about removing the varnish on some of them was not the same as what we did on other ones because of the different materials that had been applied. And so in some cases we were able to use a solvent mixture to get the varnish off. In other cases, it was so hardened on the surface and so brittle that we were actually able to lightly, I'm going to use the word scrape, just lightly passing a very fine micro spatula over the surface, and that varnish just popped right off without actually having any effect on the original surface. And then the same thing with the relief that's on the gold, the gold relief on the frames, is that again we went along and removed all the surface grime with these water-based cleaning solutions that we mix up for that purpose. So then what happened was there are 2 other steps actually. So the painted surfaces, the text and the figure of Christ, we applied a synthetic varnish to resaturate the surface like the paint, so give it that richness again, and also to afford it some protection over the years to keep dust and grime off of it. And that varnish is very stable. It will not yellow for a long, long time, if ever. And it's also very easy to remove, unlike what we had to deal with in terms of removing the old varnishes that were on there. And then in the background there was some abrasion of the black surfaces and even the gold lettering, and even the figure of Christ actually. There were scuffs and little dings on it from just people being back here or the services, which is understandable because they hang pretty low. So those were then retouched or in-painted with conservation grade pigments that we use. And then the other interesting thing is, as I was describing earlier, that the frames had this old sort of bronzy colored radiator paint on them. That can't be removed without going through a lot of work. So in that case, what we do is we don't try to get it off. We actually will repaint that surface to a color that matches. And in this case, we were trying to match the colors that we were seeing in the texture, which is this beautiful kind of warm golden color. So we mixed up those colors selectively, to match that. applied it to the surface, and then it got even another glaze over the top of that, like a thin, warm glaze to give it more of that gold look.
It's very exciting to see this painting back. Since it's been restored, there are a lot of details here on display that weren't visible before. We can see now the details in the back, the details on the wall behind Jesus, and also more clearly that he is at the Last Supper. You can see the chalice next to him and the bread that's on the plate here, and presumably here in this painting, he's consecrating the bread at the first celebration of Eucharist. Also, I find really interesting on the prayer boards that are next to the painting of Jesus, you can see now more clearly the cherub motifs that are on the prayer boards. And I think that's really interesting because they are very similar to the cherubs that are painted on the ceiling here. And this cherub looks kind of similar to the one that's carved on the organ. And so it really is nicely kind of highlighting and tying in this cherub motif that we see throughout the church.